Michelle. So happy to have you here today. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, okay, before we get into it, because today we've got sort of a hot topic, before we get into it, and it might be a controversial topic too, but we'll see.
Right.
You have had an incredible career in real estate, uh,
Yes.
and I have watched you grow, and it's been super exciting. Can you just kind of give us the backstory and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I'm going to give you the Coles notes because, when I tell people I started working for Remax Integra, as it was known in Remax Europe, in 1997, people are like, what? Like that was a long time ago, right? We're closing in on 30 years ago, which is pretty scary to think about. But I kind of just fell into it. I think that you hear that a lot, that people kind of fall into certain roles. It's not something that I was pursuing. It wasn't something that was in my plan. When I graduated university and got my feet wet by living in the big city, downtown Toronto, I just always wanted to get into a really good company, and work my way up the corporate ladder. That was the only goal I wanted to make, and where it was didn't really matter because I didn't really know at the time where it was going to be. So, working with Remax from the early stages of Remax Europe, that was mostly my focus, was Remax Europe, helping and Walter help build the brand out. I just was like, this is going to be an opportunity for me to experience something on a global level, which
Yes.
wasn't it even on my list of things to do. But when the opportunity got there, I was like, yeah, this is it. And honestly, working throughout those, almost by the time I left, it's over 3 years ago. I can't even
Hard to believe.
believe, where has the time gone? We're almost at the end of October, and I'm just like thinking, just when I started there, I had no vision of where it was going to go, but I had that opportunity to really mold it and make
Yeah.
it my own. And so when I'm looking at myself today, everything that I experienced for that time period has helped me to where I am today, everything. And more specifically, when I think about in 20, I think it was around 2017, I really got into kind of the women's representative for the brand. And it's funny that I say that because it was almost like a natural progression. And, when I started to do that in 2017, I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to be moving towards. And I loved it. I really, really embraced it. And I was very passionate about it. And it's helped me to create the business I have today.
Talk a little bit about Real MG because it's a pioneer movement, and
Right.
I'm so proud of it. Like, it's not even mine, and I'm like, oh, I love that she's doing this.
Right. It's interesting because I'm working really hard and posting all the time, and you don't feel like people are paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really interesting is when I go out to different events, I'm a very social person, so I like to get out there and network with people and talk to people and just be around people. It gives me energy. And they're like, "Oh my God, you were here and you were here, and oh my God, what's this that you're doing? And we heard about this." And I'm like, okay, people are actually paying attention. So
Yes.
This is actually good. I'm on the right path here.
Yes.
But Real MG, which actually is an acronym, it stands for Real Estate Empowers Ambitious Ladies Management Group. And what that entails is there's three pillars. There's the networking component, which is a global membership-based group of or community of women. And then there's like the consulting side of it. And then there's also and investing to create wealth side of it.
Mm.
So the consulting and the investing side, I haven't built out within the last couple of years that I've been going. I've concentrated more on the networking side. And what I'm really looking forward to in the next year and beyond is building out those two other pillars. But Real just came around as a way to support and inspire and mentor women with I do believe, and I don't want to segregate the sexes. That's not what it's about. But I think that women do have unique challenges.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to business, being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is hard enough as it is. It's not something that I believe everyone can do. I think you have to have a certain mindset and a certain thought process that's outside the box.
Yeah.
And when you throw in being a woman, being a mother, having to juggle all these different areas of your life, the professional and the personal, I do think it does adversely affect women a little bit differently, or maybe a lot differently than it does men, because the focus is, it's like you're juggling all of these balls, and you have to find, and I'm not even going to say balance. Balance is a good word, but I think it's more of an alignment.
Yes.
It's more of an alignment for you to be able to create that professional meshed in with your personal.
Yeah.
And it becomes challenging at times. And I think sometimes as women, we don't have a place where we can freely speak about that.
Yes.
Without any judgment. And I think that creating a community of women, like-minded women who are in the same kind of mindset, the same stage in their lives, is essential. I think it's essential for your mental health. I think it's essential for helping to create growth, helping to create that success, leading into each other.
Yeah.
What did you do? Why reinvent the wheel? Let's share, let's collaborate, let's partner up. And I think that women generally, they thrive a lot more in something that's more of a nurturing. And sometimes when you're saying a nurturing, it's not necessarily that, it's a weakness. It's a nurturing of body, it's just a holistic approach.
It is.
And I think that you need a community that brings you together and that you can lean on, you can rely on each other. So that's what Real is about. We want to create space where people, or women in general, it is women-based, focused. I have a lot of men that want to be part of it as well. And I salute those men that want to be part of it, because it's important that they're part of it, because
well, you know what, Michelle, I feel like that's the next evolution of men. Like men, everything you're saying is because at the end of the day, women are still the primary caretakers.
Right.
And so because of that, we have all these extra challenges, but men are stepping into that role. Not in droves, but there are men who have stepped into that role, who are stepping into that role, and who like, it's not even heard of to have a community of men who are going to support men in that role, or who are having those challenges. So I feel like that's the next evolution, is to provide a space for men who are actually juggling the same things that women are, so that they can gain that support as well.
Absolutely. And it's an understanding as well. It was interesting. I had a conversation with a gentleman. This was about probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And he was asking some really good questions. Well, why is it necessary for women to have this space over here? And he wasn't dissing it. He was genuinely interested to learn.
Yeah.
And that is part of the challenge, is that there's not an understanding of it.
No.
And men that want to genuinely learn and be part of the solution and
Yes.
help.
Yes.
That's a huge thing. It's an understanding that goes with it. So
that's awesome.
yeah, the network is great. I'm bringing women from all over the world, being part of Remax, as a global brand. It's interesting. I always say I can go anywhere in the world and know somebody.
Yes.
Like just because of that affiliation. So it's a pretty cool concept. And we're helping each other. We're helping each other. And that's the whole mission of Real. Let's get together and help each other because we are better together.
I love that. We are better together. And I also love that you can now expand your network beyond Remax as well, which you have done an amazing job at doing as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It was really important that, it wasn't just, it's brand agnostic. So I think that we can work all together. There isn't anything that's proprietary or exclusive. We can be more impactful when we're sharing amongst everybody.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you're not going to learn in a bubble, right? No. You want to be able to share because we all go through very similar things and we're not alone.
Yes.
That's the key. We're not alone. You can relate to people from any kind of industry. And what's actually cool about the network is that it's not just for realtors and brokers. It's industry wide. And real estate is huge. It's a very broad industry. So we're bringing in all of the players that touch real estate and we're learning from each other. And it's been pretty interesting, the things that we've been able to, bring to light, because what people don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. Until you bring it to them. So I just think it's a great way to, get connections, get new friends, and build your business.
Exactly. I love it. So Michelle, we wanted to talk today about sort of what's happening in the industry. And it's like this underlying thing that nobody's really talking about. We're just sort of experiencing, and we're not really, you kind of brought it to light to me the other day when I said, what do you really want to focus our conversation on?
Right.
And you said engagement. And I was like, yes, we're not really talking about it, but we're feeling some shifts. So tell me, what are you seeing happening as it relates to engagement in our industry?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I believe that we're still going through through a pandemic hangover. And I think what's happened in the last, I guess we're going into the 5th year.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in 2022, the beginning of 22, we were still kind of, well, here in Canada, especially, we were still very locked down, isolated. And then, of course, the market shifted in 2020 to the latter of 2022 into 2023, still experiencing in 2024. So, when we first went into the pandemic, nobody knew what was going on. But man, in real estate, it really took off. Mm-hmm. And I think that was true everywhere.
Yep.
Nobody thought that this was going to happen, but it did.
Yes.
And, people were doing really well. I've been on many Zoom calls and at meetings and conferences where, in the last year or so, people are like, there's no more order taking. You got to buckle down and you got to work. And I think what ended up happening was people have gotten used to being so isolated and kind of in their own little bubbles that, now that we're out of it and now that we've really shifted. This year, I have just noticed that I think, for a lack of a better word, people are just exhausted. I think there's information overload. We need to be here. We need to be here. We need to be here. And then throw in AI.
Right.
And that, as I was just saying to you, I just was on a Zoom call and it was focused on AI. And I don't know about you. I don't know how you view AI, but it's just another thing that we're adding to our already long lists of things. So I think
Yes.
there's like this information overload out there. People aren't as busy in the way that they were used to being busy. They're not making money
Yep.
because there's just not enough going on. There's not enough movement going on.
Mhm.
Properties are sitting a lot longer than in the past. There is high costs of living, there's inflation, there's you got to do this, you got to do that,
Yep.
try this, try that. I think people are just exhausted from having to do it all.
Yeah.
And there's also this fear of missing out if you don't do it all. Right?
Oh my God, the mental load, Michelle, like just everything you're saying is making me like,
Exactly. And what happens with me too, there's also, there's so much choice out there. There's so much stuff that you should be doing. And if you're anything like me, when I have too many options, I get so overwhelmed that I end up doing nothing. Nothing. No, seriously, I do nothing. And I'm just
paralysis.
like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly it. It's paralysis. So that's what I think is going on. I'm even thinking about myself when I'm engaging on social media. It's a necessary evil. Like,
Yes.
like I'm just going to say it. It is. It is. It's a
Yes.
necessary evil. If you're not there, you're nowhere.
Yeah.
If you're not in front of people, they've moved on to the next thing. But it's like, how do you keep in front of people in a good way that
Yes.
also helps you as well?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever get to the point where it feels like a chore sometimes?
Hell yeah. Hell
Right.
yeah.
And I think that that's the same thing that is happening out there with agents and people that are in the real estate industry.
And yet you can find me aimlessly scrolling.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that does something to our endorphins, right? Like our cortisol, or it just rises, because it creates more stress. Just the scrolling creates more stress.
Right. And what also it creates is a distraction.
Totally.
Like, know that you should be doing this over here, or you should be focusing over here. I'm the worst person. Somebody told me a couple of years ago, TikTok, right? So don't get on TikTok. It's so addictive. Don't do it, Michelle. What did I do? I got on TikTok. And TikTok has replaced my cable TV watching.
Oh, geez. Oh, God.
And it's the same as YouTube.
Yeah. Well,
YouTube is another one, right? So I think that, in answer to your question, I think that people are just overwhelmed. I think there's information overload, and we just need some quiet. We need some quiet.
Geez. So
and
go ahead.
Go on. Sorry.
So I was going to say, like, so I think you're right. I still think that there's a pandemic hangover.
Oh, yeah.
There is a market shift. So where they were burnt out because everything was so crazy, now they're freaking out because they're not making as much money.
Mm-hmm.
And then layer on that AI and all the information overload. They're just exhausted and burnt out. And here in the States, I think, from my perspective, I think the election is really weighing on people as well. There's a lot of fear on both sides.
Yes, that's true. I didn't even bring that up, but absolutely.
Well, yeah. So
absolutely.
You're in the networking business. You're in the business of getting people together to try to support them.
Right.
Well, how are you approaching this sort of lack of engagement or disengagement? Like what do you think agents need? And then how are you approaching getting them to actually engage? Not just agents, but anyone in the
just anybody.
Yeah.
I still I'm still trying to keep positive and bringing them information, valuable information that they may not know about. I want to bring that to them. I continue to create a space where they can come and speak about some of the challenges that they're going through. I find that, and it was interesting, I have one big event a year. It's called the Titans of Real Estate. You were with us this year at the end of May, and the focus on this year's event was on making real connections. And when I was putting that together, I was speaking with the woman the expert that we brought in, that dealt with dispersonality and all of that to bring people together. And one of the things that we discussed during our brainstorming session was just even herself going to these events is great and it's very informative, but the speakers are usually the top performers. They're the ones doing all so great, and for some people it's a bit of a turnoff. They're not doing so great, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to hear all the time, oh, I'm doing so great, you need to do this and this and this. They feel embarrassed that they're not at that level. So for me, I want to provide events and opportunities where people don't feel embarrassed to talk about some of the hardships that they're going through.
Yeah.
The fact that they're not going to make their production goals for this year. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be feeling those things because you're not always going to be on top. Those people that are on top right now, but the only place to go is down. You can't stay on top forever.
Yeah.
And they're going to go, they may be going through hardships, right? But they don't want to say, because they're on top.
Yeah.
They don't want to diminish that level that they're at. And I think that's my focus is on, creating spaces where people can come and talk about their challenges and get very useful tools.
Yes.
On simple tools, not you have to go here and you have to go here and do this AI. And it's all too much. I want people to come and feel I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And I have all of these people here that are going to help me and I'm going to help them.
Well,
it's reciprocal.
I felt that at your event in a couple of ways. One way was, I really kind of talked to a number of different people to understand, what their challenges were. Talked a lot about Trudeau. There was a lot of conversation about Trudeau.
Can't get away from the politics. Yeah.
I know, right? Inflation, high cost of living. I mean, it's so much, it's hard here, but in Canada, it's even worse.
Right.
And then, so there was just, I think, the ability to be able to talk about it. It takes it off of or outside of your body and puts it over here. Right. And it's such a release. And then when you ended that event with the sound bath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was like, and people would be like, oh, that's so woo-woo. It wasn't woo-woo. It was like, it was so incredibly relaxing. And just to feel the connection, and it sort of hit you right here, like right in your chest. And it brought you so down to the ground, like it just grounded you. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to end your conference.
Thank you for saying that, because that was our intent. We didn't want, you to go, oh my God, I went to this conference and I heard this speaker and you're just like buzzing about that. But what I find even myself, and I see many people do this, you go to these conferences, you write all these notes and you're like, this was so great. You meet all these amazing people. And the challenge is the next day after you've caught up on all the stuff you missed, by being, taking time for yourself and being away, is that you don't follow up with anybody.
Yeah.
You don't read the notes. You don't You don't, there's no execution. You just like, oh yeah, I went to that event, but I really don't remember. Nothing resonates with me. So it was really important that first of all, we ended fairly early. We cut it at 3:30 as women, busy women, mothers picking up their kids and all of those things. So that was very important to me that we did end a little bit earlier than most conferences typically end. And we really wanted to provide a sense of setting the intention, like you said, grounding people. Like, I think that a lot of people walk away with the conversation tables, which was really important, but a lot of people loved that sound bath.
Yeah. It was incredible.
It was just so different and unique. It's not something that you see all the time.
Yep.
And okay, sure, it was a women-focused conference, and we will do some of these out-of-the-box things. But I think that you're so right. What you experienced that day, was kind of solidified.
And I think it allowed women to connect with that part of themselves. Right. And I actually wrote the letter for my weekly newsletter this morning. And I came across this quote from Brene Brown all about, believing in not betraying who you are, because, anytime you try to fit in, you're ultimately betraying who you are. And there's 2 points about that as it relates to your event. One is you went outside the box because that sound bath was something that you believed in, and 2, felt was going to be good for the community.
Right.
And maybe at another time that wouldn't have been accepted or acceptable.
Right. Absolutely.
But you followed your heart on that, and it was a success. So I think, number one, following your heart and not being afraid to connect to your internal self in business, I think is super important. And then the second piece of that, I think, is really staying true to your personal brand, which is speaking your truth, using your voice.
Absolutely.
And giving yourself the gift of whatever it is that you need. And so when we're talking about this exhaustion and this lack of engagement, maybe what we need to do is stop the scrolling and just kind of tune in and think about, what is it that I need right now?
Right. That's, think about that. It's giving yourself permission to unplug.
Yes. Yes.
I think about even myself, because I've even changed my habits with social media over the past year. I'm still engaged, not as much as I used to be. I admit that. So how could not other people not be as engaged as me as well? But it's giving yourself permission to unplug, reflect, get quiet.
Yes.
Get quiet. There's so much noise. And I think the struggle can also be when you're getting quiet and you're doing nothing, because the market has shifted and agents in particular aren't making the type of money they were making before. Allowing yourself to get quiet is almost, it makes them anxious as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're like thinking, I can't afford to be quiet. I need to be doing all the time. And what's happening is it's this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
I need to be doing, but I really need to listen to myself, my body, what I need internally.
Yeah.
And what you need is to get quiet, to get busy.
Yeah. Yeah. To really understand what it is that you need to do.
Right.
Or not do.
Yeah. It was interesting the other day when we were on Reclaim, and I think it was Mimi, and she said, burnout, what was the quote? Burnout let me just grab it. I did write it down. We get burned out because we are forgetting why we're doing it.
Yes.
Why we've got to get back
Yes.
to our why.
Yes.
And
Yep.
be authentic and
Yep.
and embrace the quiet time so that
Yeah.
we can get uber focused.
And stay focused on the why so that you can create the boundaries to say no to the things that aren't serving that purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Michelle, as we start to wrap up here, this has been, we could talk for like an hour.
Yeah, we could talk. We could talk for days, you and I.
We could.
So, yeah.
What are 3 things you would want to leave our community with today?
You know, kind of back to the topic of the lack of engagement that we're seeing. I think maybe we need to retitle that. It's not necessarily a lack of engagement. I think it's people getting back to their core beliefs, their core values.
Yes.
And just taking that time to really figure out what it is they want out of life. You know, Walter always said to me, everything has a shelf life. Everything has a shelf life. And sometimes when we're doing something and maybe when we've been doing it for so long, we get really attached to that. But maybe when you're feeling that you're not as engaged in your business or you're not doing some of the things that you used to be doing, maybe it's a sign that it's time to find something else that really I think that's really scary for people to admit.
Yes.
Right? You know, I see a lot of people that have been in real estate for decades. You know, some people say, I'm going to die selling real estate. And it's not that they really enjoy it any longer. It's just that they don't know what else they're going to do. And I think that, you know, really understanding that it's okay.
Yeah, it is.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
With where you're at.
Yes.
Right? Giving yourself permission to have those feelings.
Yes.
And not feeling that it's just adding to your anxiety.
Yeah.
Like forcing things.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I would love to leave people with, we need to get back to a time when we were getting out there and talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
People are scared to talk to each other, I find right now.
Yes, I agree.
And, you know, in a competitive industry like real estate, they're afraid to talk about that they're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one of the things that we do need to talk to each other about. And I don't know, and just embracing your passion,
Mm-hmm.
getting really, really in tune with what does bring you joy.
Yeah.
And if it's not this, then it's something else.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And I mean, I say it to clients all the time. I preach this all the time that as it relates to, you know, people that you're working with, your clients, you know, focus on the people who you love working with, like attract more of those people.
Right.
So
and it's okay to get rid of the other ones.
Yes,
don't beat yourself up about it.
No.
Right?
No.
So, yeah.
100%. Okay. Finish this sentence. Know, like, trust is.
Know, like, trust is. For me, it's when you find someone or something that just brings you joy.
Oh.
You know, it's interesting. I live very close to the airport here in in Toronto. And whenever I drive by the airport and I see the planes flying in or taking off, I get so excited because for me, what brings me joy is traveling.
Yeah.
I love going to new places. And I think that you have to lean into that. Like, or when you see someone that you haven't seen in a long time that, you're even smiling before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I heard you were coming to our event, I was like smiling from ear to ear at that anticipation, because there's this certain energy that people that bring you joy have. And, we forget about it sometimes because we're so busy in our lives that we don't make time for it. And, I think that, things are just really break. It can be the smallest thing. Like this morning, I looked out my window and I just had the top blind open and I could see the sky. The sun was coming out and the leaves of the trees are all changing color and the clouds. And it was just so beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful fall day today.
Yes, it is.
And that brought me joy.
Yeah.
That little thing. And, it doesn't have to be big.
No.
So I know, like, and trust my joy.
I love it. Michelle, where can people find you?
I'm all over the place. As I said, TikTok is my thing right now, but I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I have a Facebook group page under my name, also at RealMG official. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. So Just type in my name or RealMG and you'll find me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you and everything that you're doing for our industry.
Yes. And I love your podcast. Whenever I see a new one out, as I'm driving somewhere, I'm like, I got to listen to this because there's always some golden nuggets. And that's another thing too. Yes, there's a lot of information coming out at you, but if you take the time to really attend and take in some of these different things, you're always going to walk away with something.
Yeah.
Or you're going to meet someone that you never anticipated that you're going to meet, but there's always going to be something that you're going to be able to take away.
It's being open to the possibility, it really is.
Right. We spent a lot of time isolating and we got used to it. And I think we have to get used to it because there's a lot of things out there. There's a whole big world out there. And, it's for us to discover. And, when I think of some of the people that we've lost over the last few years. One of them was a dear friend of mine. She was actually a member as well. And, she had not her whole life ahead of her, but the next chapter of her life ahead of her. And it was cut short. So I think of her sometimes and I think to myself, I owe it to her and myself.
Yes. Yeah.
To get
to
out
do what
there.
she wasn't able to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, I'm actually going to see you like in 20 minutes or so.
Exactly. Yes. Day 2. Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it.
So good to see you. And thank you all always so much for listening. We're so appreciative for everyone who listens to our podcast. I look forward to seeing you all on the pod next time. Ciao, everyone.